days, overwhelmed, trapped in a maze. Small business owner, stress had me in a daze. Every problem piled up, couldn't catch a break. Thought I couldn't make it, my dreams were at stake. But then I found a group that changed my whole perspective. Our success group of a community so effective. We all chasing that dream, sharing struggles and fears. They understood my journey, wiped away my tears. Together we broke through, we rise above. No more feeling separate, fueled by love. Our small business is shining, reaching new heights. And with the support of our success group, we're taking flight. Now we're strong, the vision's so clear. Building our dreams with no more fear. Together we're resilient, unstoppable force. With our success group.
Let's talk some business.
All right. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome into Small Business Saturdays. My name's Aaron Montgomery, and this is my amazing wife, Kylene Montgomery. Kylene, how are you doing today?
I am doing amazing. It finally feels like fall this morning, so it's beautiful outside.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're cooler weather, but I still had the windows down on my drive back home over the last 20 minutes. So it
Yeah,
was,
where
it
were
was
you?
nice and brisk, though. So that felt good.
Yeah.
So,
Hey,
all
Chuck.
right. Good afternoon, everyone, Chuck says. So, Chuck, thank you for being here. Let's make sure that we are sharing this with everybody. Let's get some more people in here so we can have a wider breadth of perspective. And it's all about that, right, Kylene? Last week, we had the show all planned out, and we got some folks that joined us and asked some questions and had some comments, and we just went down that, and it was awesome. I thought we were able to, through what we were able to share, what the other people in the chat were able to share, Barb being one of them, lots of great perspectives on how we can just fall deeper in love with our business and make this whole business ownership thing a little easier on ourselves by kind of working together. So
Most definitely. I love that we can learn from everyone, just our perspective on different concepts. We can learn from that, use what works for us. And otherwise, if we aren't doing that, right, we just stay in our own little bubble. We're going to be in the same place in the future. So same challenges, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. And hello, Barb. Thanks for tuning in. And so as we were just talking, we're just encouraging people to go out there. So Barb and Chuck are tuning in from our YouTube channel, which is over at liveosg.com. Let's see if I've got that handy in the banners here. Of course. Oh, there it is. It was way at the top. All right. So if maybe you're somebody that watches mainly on Facebook, we try to put them both places just to make everything accessible for people, but wouldn't hurt to go over there to our YouTube channel and just hit that like and subscribe button and make sure that you are sharing these shows with everyone. So Kylene, today our intention is to get back to what we were talking about, where we kind of started last week's show. And again, I love it. So if this week goes off the rails again too, quote unquote rails, let's do it, right? Like wherever you guys want to go, that's what this is really about. But what we had planned out was this concept of action beats inaction every time. And so I know last week we talked a little bit about our intentions, but maybe your intentions change a little bit, or maybe you just want to reiterate, what are you hoping people take from what we kind of put together here today?
I hope people take that, small steps really do lead to big changes over time. So sometimes we look at our goals and we're like, we can't get there. But I hope what people get from the show today and last week is that, just keep moving forward. That action really will give you that momentum to keep going.
Love it. Yeah, totally. And, just to kind of, that's definitely my intention too. I also just want to hopefully share with folks that we sometimes make it harder than it needs to be, right? We want to overcomplicate things. We think that, and this has always been my maybe hang up or slow down or whatever, is that, to be valuable, it has to be very complex, and, it's not going to work if it's not super difficult. And, but the realities that I'm learning and that we're finding as we dive into this stuff, Kylene, even deeper, is, man, truths are truths, and they're simple. Almost said a bad word. They're simple. I mean, legit simple. I think what makes it a challenge isn't the fact that it's got to be more complex. We're looking for it to be more complex because we think if we can master the complexity, then it'll be easier. But the reality is it's so simple that it just it requires kind of a different mindset. It requires an uncommon mindset, which, while simple at its core, is not always easy to do. Consistency, persistence, thinking differently, going against the grain sometimes, those types of things. So that's what I'm also hoping to share with folks, is the fact that what we're talking about here is really simple. It's just not always easy if we're trying to go it alone, if we're not thinking about it in the right way, if it's everything is have to, and it's so there's no fun involved, right?
Yeah.
I probably talk about this enough. This is not a typo that I've got FUN in all caps. That's not a typo. It was intended to be that way. When we're having fun, when we're loving what we get to do, everything's so much easier, and we're honestly more successful. The tighter we grip, the harder we make it, the more choices that we make to say, oh, this is hard, or woe is me. Again, I'm not trying to say to anyone that your situation is not challenging.
Yeah.
Challenging is part of this, right? When you become an entrepreneur, you're signing up for challenging.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that it has to limit you, right? And so, I think that's what I'm want to get to today for sure.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love how you expanded on that. I mean, it really is some of the stories that we attach ourselves to, and that's changing that mindset on it. When you talked about it, simple. So why isn't everyone doing it, right? Why aren't we doing it all the time? We still are growing and learning, and always in our business, and truly, it's just like, okay, for most recent example, I wanted to schedule 30 days of social media. Remember what a big deal I made that out to be?
Yeah.
And it took me a bit to get started, and then I got started, and it didn't take as long. And then I'm like, man, I just created this big, huge thing, and I didn't have to. And so it was just a good reminder of the power of all these concepts we're talking about here.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's dive into it. Let's get into the meat of this. Make sure. Hello, we got Jerry checking in. Thanks for being here, Jerry. And excellent. All right. So again, this is a continuation a little bit, and we're gonna go deeper into what we started talking about last week. But let's start with the mindset again. Let's just kind of recap it. We don't need to go as deep as we went last week. So if you want to go back in and listen in on the first part of last week's show on the mindset side, listen to the whole thing. There's some really good stuff, and not just from us, but like I said, there was everybody, just the questions that were being asked and the conversation that was going on in the chat. I thought we covered a lot of really great ground. So check that out. But Kylene, the first thing that we talked about with mindset was just, and we brought it up already, this overthinking, right? We make it more complex than it needs to be.
Yep.
And a lot of times that need to make it complex leads to overthinking, which then leads to paralysis, which then leads to inaction, right? And then the pressure gets even higher, and we do less things because now we're even more on edge.
Yep.
But last week you read a little quote. Do you want to share that again?
Yep. Let me read it here. It says, "Don't leave anything for later. Later, the coffee gets cold. Later, you lose interest. Later, the day turns into night. Later, people grow up. Later, people grow old. Later, life goes by. Later, you regret not doing something when you had the chance."
Love it.
Yep.
Love it. There you go. So
Pretty
what does
powerful.
that, what does that say to you, Kylene? What is that encouraging you to do?
When you have the thought, when you have the desire, just go for it. Just do something towards that instead of thinking, well, I'm going to write this down on my list. Well, that's okay. But if there's something you could do towards that, just embrace it and go for it, because all of a sudden we're going to be, it's going to be 5 years down the road, and we're really not where we thought we would be. So
Absolutely.
it's really that action in the moment.
Yeah.
I'm working
Definitely.
on that.
Chandler says I need that on a poster. Yep.
Yep.
Kylene needed it on a poster too. So
Yeah.
if you want to.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
So
It,
I printed it and laminated it for her. So
yeah.
and again, I need it on a poster too, but this is definitely an area that Kylene has been working on, and pretty proud to watch her grow in that. So
yeah, my comfort zone is very comfortable sometimes, and so pushing against it and not overthinking it and creating that decision fatigue we've talked about. It's really beneficial. That's why I'm happy we're sharing it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, you just brought up decision fatigue. That was the next thing that we talked about. We talked about how Mark Zuckerberg has his uniform. We even got into some of the personal decisions. What do you want for dinner, right? Who knew, right, Kylene, when we signed up to get married, that was going to be the most challenging part of our marriage, is determining what's for dinner.
That's the one thing I can do to push Aaron's buttons, is ask him what's for dinner.
So, well, and here's why. Again, we talked about it a little more in depth, so we won't go too far. But I've actually, since last week, I found a study that showed that we, on average, make 35,000 decisions a day. So think about that for a second. 35, and those are all the decisions we make, right? Kylene just had to make a decision to lift that coffee cup up and take a sip. We had to make a decision to open our eyes in the morning, right? So all of those things are decisions. So let's just, assume, and I'd love this to be more true than it is, but let's assume we're getting 8 hours of sleep a night, where, we're not making decisions during our sleep necessarily. So you start doing some math there. That means 2,187.5 decisions an hour. That's a lot of decisions, right? and again, from opening your eyes in the morning to choosing to tune in here on Small Business Saturdays, to deciding if you agree with what we're talking about, or just anything small. But if you think about it, those are the decisions that shape us. And so when we make all of these other decisions important, right? Like, what's for dinner? I'm not saying that what you choose to eat is not important. What I'm saying is there a way to make that easier for yourself, right? Could you meal plan? So just make one decision about what you're going to eat for the week on a Sunday, right? Choosing what to wear, right? I've created a system for myself that I make it pretty easy. There's the clothes rotate. When it gets to the front, that's what I'm wearing. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but I'm just saying what your systems are. So anything else on that, Kylene?
No, I mean, it reduces that delay that you might have, and it gives you more time back. And I think that's the power of it, right? Is you're not using up all that space and creating that additional stress when it doesn't have to be there. You can put those things in place.
Love it.
Yep.
All right. And then the other part about the mindset that we covered just a little bit is that we don't need to have all the answers to begin. Right. And sometimes that also gets in our way of taking action. Because the opposite. So what we are thinking, at least what I think in those moments where I'm like, I don't know all the answers, I need to wait. Right. Yes, there's a balance between patience, thinking through things, all that stuff. But far too often, most of us lean towards the side of, well, I don't know everything, and I'm going to be really cautious, which is totally understandable, right? We're all going to be different, by the way. So your action is going to look different than mine and Kylene and all that kind of stuff. But typically what we're seeing is people are thinking they need all the answers first. But the reality is the answers show up after you take an action, right? Because we don't know. We can make a whole bunch of assumptions about how these things are going to go, but until you actually do it, you don't know the truth. All you have are your assumptions. And so that's what we're trying to get answers on. But the only way to create those answers is to take the action and then listen for the feedback, or look for the feedback. So
I think people get stuck there, right? Because you don't have the confidence to go and do something because you don't have all those answers. But how do you build confidence? You survive a risk. You do that first step. You do that little thing. You survive it. You learn, and you keep going instead of making those assumptions.
Yep.
So.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And then I guess the last piece of the mindset side of this from our vantage point, but those of you guys in the comments right now, anything else on the mindset of taking more action, we'd love to hear from you guys. But this power of momentum is also something that we probably don't realize or take enough stock in. The fact that it's those small actions that are going to break the overthinking cycle, right? And so when you don't know what to do something. Doesn't matter what it is, just do something, because that'll at least give you a new piece of information, a new bit of feedback, a new kind of thing to put in the thinking, and that's going to get you moving forward. But again, if you're just sitting there trying to make assumptions and think about it the whole time, you never get anything new. You're just waiting, right? And at that point, you've now also given away your power because you're waiting for something to happen to you, as opposed to creating something for yourself through the momentum that you're building.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So
yeah, you're essentially empowering yourself to have more success in your life, really, is what you're doing with all of that.
Yeah. Okay. So again, that's the mindset stuff. Those of you guys that are tuned in right now, feel free to add anything more to that conversation. Again, we just want to hit some of those points one more time to make sure everybody caught that. You can go and get a little more depth of that from last week. But then the next phase that we want to talk about, Kylene, is we call it the fundamentals. It's based on the title of the book and the foundation. These can be sometimes more of the practical applications of these concepts. And really for this particular part that we're talking about, this idea of taking more action and how do we create more action and that type of thing. I actually have two actions so important to our overall success that we actually put 2 full chapters based around action, right? So fundamental number 10 is productive action. And that really is kind of the setup for craving feedback. So honestly, to be honest with you guys, just to give you guys, if you haven't read the book yet, the whole third and final section of this cycle is really about action. But these 2 specific fundamentals really talk to our action. And so productive action, again, is understanding that it's the small incremental improvements that will lead to big results. Right? I think what catches us here, Kylene, is that we see others, we're comparing ourselves to other people, and we're going, oh my gosh, look at what they're doing. And they've taken this big, huge leap. But what we don't know is everything they did leading up to that point.
Yeah.
Right. The news media doesn't show up until you've gone viral. Right. Yeah. But the 10,000 hours that you put into that beforehand, nobody sees except for the person that's there. And then there's the other side of the blinders on it, is outside world doesn't see all the effort that we put in, all the little steps and all the incremental things that we did along the way. But then we've been involved in it so much that we don't understand how much of a leap we actually took, because all we were a part of was, oh, yep, I'm so close to this. I did this every day. And maybe we start noticing that people are showing up, but we don't kind of stop to go, oh, wow. Right. And we don't celebrate that. And so that's kind of the first part of this. And I talk a lot about this in the book and productive action, but it's this incremental improvement. And again, realizing both sides of the scenario to help our mindset go, okay, just take more action. Right. So anything on that, Kylene?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and it even comes back to understanding why you're doing what you're doing every day, why that is so important to all of this.
Yeah.
Is because those small steps that you take every day, and maybe you're not seeing that end result right away, but it is slowly getting, not slowly, sometimes it's fast too, getting you to that end result that you're wanting and desiring. But you really have to have that clarity and faith and belief in yourself, coming back to the mindset here to keep moving forward. But every day, having the small steps moving forward is really important.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so again, this is all about trying to give you guys some practical steps. I know we're still kind of. I'm trying to make the bridge, the transition from mindset into these practical steps.
Yeah.
And so the other part of this, and you brought it up in the mindset part, but I think it's also worth putting this on our quote unquote bridge from one to the next, is this idea that we only gain self-confidence by surviving a risk. And
Mhm.
so the same thing happens with these small actions. We gain more confidence, right?
Yep.
I mean, from a practical application, Kylene, your example of being here on this program right now is a perfect example of that. So just explain to people how that looked for you.
Well, I was terrified to be on camera, let alone live on Facebook and YouTube. Aaron kept saying, you got to get people to know who you are. And I don't know, did it take you 3 months, 4 months, maybe longer?
I was gonna say,
and he got me to do it. And when I started, I had like a full on speech, like for speech class, written out, had all these words. But that's where I started, and I survived it. And then over time, I've obviously learned and trusted myself more because I survived it, and I didn't, nothing terrible happened, and reminded myself that, the people that want to listen will come and listen, and those that don't, that's okay. That's fine. But yeah, it was that small step. So the first step was joining you for a live, I think, was my very first time on your old version of Small Business Saturday.
Yeah. Yep. And then at one point you had your own show where you were doing it all by yourself, right? And then
I got there.
You're just doing, and so it just keeps evolving over time.
Mm-hmm.
And, so you just keep taking action and finding what works, and you get right. Because we stopped doing Small Business Saturdays for a little bit, right? I just had to change things. We had to rethink it. And, I realized a big part of that was that I did want to have these conversations with you. Right. And we were encouraged by Becky Kotzer and Tanya to, do another program, or it was actually going to start out with the four of us at the time. And that made me start thinking, I think I do want to come back and start doing some Small Business Saturday stuff again. And so again, it's evolving. But we got to do that. We got to kind of just understand that those things make us more confident, and therefore we do it better, and there's a cumulative effect to it, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, if you kind of look back at the things in your life that you're most proud of, they probably weren't the easiest things, were they? It's probably those big accomplishments that you have, and you did that by surviving a risk and taking that first step.
100%. Okay, so before I get to the next quick point here, first off, hi, Darren. Thanks for joining us as well. But I'm curious if you guys wouldn't mind, if anybody wants to share, we can either talk about it or just sharing. But if I put you on the spot right now, and I said you can't think too much about it, you just have to tell me right now, what is an area of your business where a small improvement could have the most impact? Doesn't have to be the most impact, but could have the most impact. So I want you guys to be thinking about that. I want you guys to type that in. Again, actually, I don't want you to be thinking about it. I want you to be typing. How about that? So just go with your gut. There's no wrong answers to this. But just throw it out there, right? And then we can talk a little bit more about that. While you guys are doing that, here's the next part of this practical step, right? So my hope is we bridge from mindset into actual practical foundation, fundamental idea here. And you're over that bridge, and you said, yes, okay, I got the mindset. Now, when we start thinking about this area where we can identify and make improvements, the other thing to think about, or to bring into the process of creating this, is what is your ultimate goal? Right. So this morning I drove about an hour away to a little town for an awesome little business meeting, a Franklin County mastermind group, and a bunch of small business owners. We got together for about an hour. It was awesome. And we were talking about some stuff. And the one guy was talking about his business and what was working for him and what he needed and that type of thing. And then he said, but my ultimate goal is to be semi-retired in 3 years, I think he said. Right. And so from there, now we can make sense of it. Now we can say, okay, cool. I see what you're doing. But if you can then align as many actions as you can towards that ultimate goal, so what do you need to semi-retire? What does semi-retire mean? Right. And so you start getting into those things, and now there's progress, right? From that area of like, oh, it's a big desire wish. That's awesome. You've got to have that. But the next step is to say, okay, let me take that and break it down.
Yeah.
Right. You and I were talking last night, what is financial freedom? Yeah. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So both Aaron and I's, one of the things that we desire is financial freedom. The ability to give where we can give our gifts to more people, and travel and all that fun stuff that financial freedom does provide. And then Aaron's like, have we ever sat down to figure out exactly what we need to be financially free? What does that actually look like? And we hadn't done that. So we started that last night, and it's very eye-opening. And it kind of gives us like a direction and like a path. So we know the next steps that we can take.
Love it. Yep, for sure. Yeah. So start breaking those goals, start breaking that down, getting very clear on what those things mean. And then, okay. So going back to the gentleman from this morning, what does semi-retirement mean? And then what is the sign that you could use to go, yep, okay, I can now make that leap, right? Sandy, I don't want to go too deep into anything that this was part of our mastermind group, so stuff doesn't leave there, but Sandy's here in the comments, and she's got a goal, right? And we talked a little bit about that same thing. Like, how are you going to feel that confidence in saying now is the time to make that leap, or now is the time to do something a little bit different? And so really identifying that is a huge step. And then last thing before we get to some of the comments here, which is really awesome. Appreciate you, Sandy and Barb, for sharing. Start with what we might consider the MIT, the most important task. And this most important task can be something that's very small. In fact, I would recommend it being a small step. Right? So don't think because it's most important, it has to be massive and big. Most important meaning it's most closely aligned with what your goal is. Right. And so Kylene and I, if our most important thing is financial freedom, then again, our most important step is to start figuring out what that means specifically. Right. And so we might get a better idea of that. And then maybe the next day, the most important step is to actually put those numbers into a spreadsheet, and then start actually planning out each of the pieces, right? Okay. Got to remove some debt. We've got to, add some revenue streams. These types of things. And then we can start breaking it down. It doesn't mean I have to do it all right now. So again, let go of the fact that most important task doesn't mean most complicated, biggest, going to make the biggest leap. What's most closely aligned that I can do right now, right away, right when I start my day to get closer to my ideal goal? Yeah. Anything?
I love that. Well, I love that you explained what most important task was, because when I think about it, my brain immediately goes to big. Okay, what's the big thing that I can get done? But really, that's when the procrastination shows up. That's when all the other things show up, because it seems too big. So I'm glad that you explained just the next little step, small step. And then over time, you're going to get there.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. Well, I had asked earlier for you guys in the comments to share some things that might be an area where a small improvement could have a significant impact, and using the word could very specifically there. Right. And so let's get Barb's first, and then we'll come back to Sandy's. So Barb says, to finish the new Shopify website template, procrastinating sometimes too many ideas. And Barb also shared, I totally agree, Kylene. Love it. Love it. So Let's talk about that a little bit, Kylene. You want to start
Mhm.
and kind of
Yeah.
give some of your thoughts to how that all fits together with what we're talking about?
Mhm.
Sorry, before I want to explain one more thing before you go. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's brain went up. Wait a second, you forgot something. Sometimes I
It's
get so excited, I get so far ahead of myself that I forget that I left a chunk out. All right. So I left a chunk out. So we talked about how fundamental number 10 was productive action and
Mhm.
working our way up to that. But the other fundamental that I forgot to mention that is all about action is the last fundamental number 13, which is called marginal gains. And I use the word marginal because again, we want to break it down, and so it kind of makes us feel like it's smaller. But marginal also tends to relate to abundance, maybe financial for people too, and then gains, right? We're so our trajectory doesn't have to be like this, right? Because honestly, if your trajectory like this is like this, I've been part of those companies where the trajectory is like this, right? Like they go from like boom to wow, but then the boom to wow, they weren't prepared for it. They didn't have the foundation in place. And so they went from boom to wow to, now we're down below where we started because we fell off that cliff because it was too steep. Right. So if we bring it back down to marginal gains, right. And then what happens is it starts going up more and more, but we're riding that wave. And so there's less downs. And
That's
so that's the idea here. How many small incremental marginal gains can we make on a daily, regular, weekly, monthly, yearly basis? Um,
Mhm.
so, okay, I wanted to make sure that I covered both of those fundamentals. Now, let's take that and talk about what Barb shared with us here to finish the new Shopify website template. She's, got some procrastination that might show up, and
Mhm.
she feels like that maybe is coming from too many ideas. And
Yep.
I'm going to add words into Barb's mouth because I'm going to say too many good ideas. And just knowing Barb, they're good ideas. So go ahead.
I love it. Okay. So with that, you have your end goal, right? You want to finish the template for your site, so it's really what's the next thing that has to happen for that. Writing down the most important thing to get you to the next step. Having that plan forward. Maybe the next step is to, I don't know, write your description. Maybe you write one description a day. Slowly you're going to get there. It depends on how fast you want to go, but really it's just breaking it down into small tasks. And then, well, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but you know, blocking that time for your just one task. If the one task is or descriptions of products, you're just doing that and you're really hyper focused in it and it goes faster. Um, so that's kind of where I was thinking that if that's an area where you're finding it's too big and you're procrastinating, where you could begin to just break it down and
Yeah.
Chunk out certain things that you're just
Yep.
doing one task at a time.
Yeah. No, that was good. I actually pulled out my pen and I was writing some notes because you got my brain going as you were sharing stuff there, and I didn't want to forget.
Yep.
So I think two things that, in basically just adding on or kind of agreeing with what Kylene's saying here. Um, for me personally, I might start with the middle part. Actually, is kind of just say, hold on a second, let me slow down real quick and go, why am I procrastinating? Kylene, you know me, I love to ask why questions. I know it
Mhm.
drives you nuts sometimes. You're like, I just want an answer. I don't need you to ask me more questions, but sorry, it's the way it goes. But like, why am I procrastinating? And
Mhm.
again, maybe sometimes it's too many ideas. Okay, great. Well, let me understand that. Too many ideas. Do I feel like I'm not, what is my end goal? Maybe I'm not clear enough on my end goal. And so that's causing me to have all these new ideas because I'm right. Because when we have a very clear vision and picture of what we want it to look like when it gets done, typically the ideas kind of slow down for ways to change it. But what shows up are ideas for ways to get there. But it's until
Mhm.
we get to that point where we're really clear. And again, I'm not suggesting that's what's going on with Barb here. I'm just saying these are some things that we can think about.
Mhm.
So yeah, that'd be one thing I really want to get into is dive into the root of that. And those are conversations I love having with people, by the way. right? We do that a lot with the folks in the Masters of Success. We just say,
Mhm.
hey, what's going on? What are the steps? Sandy and I just had a call the other day, and it was something very specific, but we were able to kind of like, okay, well, why? Okay, is there a different way to think about this? I I I love that uncommon mindset, and so for me, it's just asking different questions, and because I know the people that I'm talking to have all the answers. So they're not depending on me to come up with answers. They're depending on me to have a different kind of look at it and ask them different questions to where they can find the answers that they need. So
Yep.
that's the first part. Second part, you also said in there something I think was really key and crucial. How fast? You said, well, how fast? Because that becomes another factor that we maybe don't put enough into. Okay, where do you want to go? What's the goal? Great. And by when? Okay, cool. Now, how much are you willing to then dedicate to that, right? Because sometimes we have these big goals and dreams, which is awesome and we should, but we also have to be realistic with ourselves. Are you willing to sacrifice enough right now to get to that point that you can do it, right? Or you're just hoping that it's going to get there? Because we when we're trying to achieve something, we are going to have to sacrifice some resources. That could be time, that could be we need to make some investments in some things, that could also just be our energy, right?
Mhm.
If I want to have energy to play with the kids, which we want to do. Well, you're going to have to balance that out with the energy that you have to put effort into achieving that goal, right? So that's the other thing to really look at, I think, is that how fast, but then equating that to how much are you willing to put into it, right?
Mhm.
Because you can have all the steps to get there, but if you don't take the actions, going back to the action beats inaction, then it doesn't really matter, right? I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we were talking about this from a sermon a couple weeks ago, Kylene, at our church, right? The faith has to be as much as a mustard seed. And I just thought, yeah, when I ask God to move a mountain, I better realize that I'm going to have a shovel in my hand the next morning, right? Like
Mhm.
he- that will happen. How much am I willing to put into it of myself? How much am I willing to be the tool to get there?
Yep.
So anything else on that? I kind of went deep there.
No, that was perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hit Sandy's here real quick. Administrative sus, I need to free up some time, right? And so yeah, Sandy and I got to talk a little bit about that earlier in the week, but I think this also really speaks to what we were just talking about. What are you willing to sacrifice for
Mhm.
that, right? Because maybe sometimes in a situation like this, administrative stuff, okay, well, then is there a virtual assistant you could use? Is there a service that you could invest in that you could, free up some time and do that type of thing, right?
Mhm.
And what we have to do is we have to change our mindset from going, okay, well, that costs this much and that's above my cost threshold, right? Your cost threshold is different than your value threshold. So you need to put it over on your value threshold scale and go, how much is my time worth to me? Because this is kind of the analogy that I use, Kylene. I don't know if this speaks to anybody. So if you have a better analogy, please feel free to share it. But like if I were to say to you, Kylene, okay, I will guarantee you $10,000 if you give me $1,000, and that's in writing. It's a contract. Boom. Right? Would you? And maybe $1,000 is way more money than you've ever spent or plan on spending on anything.
Mhm.
Right? Like we could change the. You want to make it really hard. I'll give you $1,000,000. You give me $100,000. Right? But if you knew that was guaranteed and you believed that deeply in your heart that it was guaranteed that you were going to get $1,000,000 and all you had to do was give me $100,000, would you not figure out a way to come up with
Mhm.
$100,000?
100% I would.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about with this. I'm not saying you have to give somebody $100,000. What I'm saying is, are you willing to exchange value for some if you believe that that's going to, right? So is the freeing up time, how much is freeing up your time worth to you? That's how you make the decision on, do I do this or do I do that? So
Yep.
what
Yep.
do you think?
I mean, it's super powerful to reframe it that way, because we do, when you just like outsourcing, or, anytime you're asking for help, that comes at a cost, right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
in return, are you getting more value from that? Are you getting your time back? Are you able to serve even more people as a result of that additional help? And maybe your profit's a little bit less, but you're still moving forward, and coming back to your reason why you're doing this whole business. I think it's really important.
Yep. Yep. And so Sandy added in here, one of the challenges I have is thinking I have to do everything myself, but in reality, I could find someone else to do it better and faster, leaving time for things that only I can do. And if I can,
Mhm.
and I'm not adding for Sandy necessarily, but I want you guys to think about that one more layer deep and say, leaving time for things that only I can do and that I love to do.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what is your what is your purpose? What's your gifts? Do that and
Yep.
focus on that, and then surround yourself with people that can do those other things. Because,
Mhm.
For me, there's certain things that I love to do, and there's certain things that I don't love to do, right? And so my goal is to figure out how to make that to where more of the things that I am trying to accomplish each day fall on that get to do because I love doing it. Right.
Yep.
So, okay. Let's hit Jerry's comment here. Jerry says, time for me. I know we all have the same 24 hours, but we don't have the same responsibilities for our time.
Yep.
Okay. You want to talk about that one though?
Yeah.
This one, I'll get up on my soapbox here.
I
So
know.
help me.
So with this is where we realize that it looks different for all of us, right? Every situation, every one's needs, like you said, our responsibilities are different. We might just get there a little bit differently than someone else. And so when we have certain responsibilities, we just carve in time to do that one thing, so you're still moving forward. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means it's going to look a little bit differently. Maybe it might take you a little bit longer to get there than it would someone else, but that's their story. And I think we just need to focus on what will work for you to continue to grow, because you have that desire, you have that goal, you have that dream for a reason. And so you're going to get there when you create those habits and put them in place, the doing the most important thing. You're going to get there. It just might look a little different. Is that the take you would?
Yeah. You definitely helped me soften up a little bit, which is good. Now, you know me, Kylene, I'm a big 100% responsibility guy.
Yeah.
And so for me, yes, absolutely, Jerry, you are 100% right. We don't all have the same responsibilities for our time, right? I am blessed that Kylene and the people around me allow me the time to really think deeply about these things. And I know that that's a superpower of mine, right? But at the same time, I'm making choices along the way that also speak to what my responsibilities are, right? And so, like you said, Jerry, we do all have the same 24 hours in the day. So to me, the things that we can control to get our time back is what we're making our priorities, right? And so, yes, maybe you've got a responsibility that's been put on you, but how are you handling that responsibility? What are you doing to manage and maintain that responsibility? Because at the end of the day, this goes back to, like, I was having a conversation in my business coaching mastermind that I'm a part of about this idea that, well, people think you have to pay your taxes, right?
Yeah.
Is that true?
No.
No, right? If I don't pay my taxes, what's the result of that? Right? Go to jail. And so I choose to pay my taxes because the pain of not paying my taxes is bigger than, and so again, those responsibilities are things that we might take on because we do feel responsible in some way, but we can manage those things as well. Right. And again, not trying to downplay any of the responsibilities. Absolutely. Right. As parents, as people in our community, as spouses, as partners, as
Mhm.
you know, I have a responsibility to cuddle my dog. Right? Yeah, our little fluff ball, right? I took that on as a responsibility, right? But I don't, so I don't know. I don't know if that really landed, but I think you know what I was trying to get to, Kylene.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think that we go through different seasons of our life where those responsibilities shift a little bit too. So as long as you know that if something is important to you, that you ask the people around you for some support so you can allow yourself to keep moving forward and get that most important thing done, that is a choice to ask for help if you need it. Kind of coming back to what we were talking about before with, you know, asking other people like a virtual assistant or outsourcing some of your tasks that maybe aren't the things you love to do. You can do the same thing with some of your responsibilities too. Maybe once a week you ask for a little help in one area to give you that time to do the most important thing, for lack of better words, in that.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Okay. All right. Well, I'll go way down this rabbit hole, but maybe this is a good small business Saturday for another time. This concept of responsibility.
Yeah.
I think, and it's huge. I think that's awesome, Jerry. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
bringing that up.
You too.
Actually, I've done some research on this whole concept, to be honest with you, because like I said, I'm a big 100% responsibility guy, but I was not always. And so
Mhm.
I had to talk myself into it. And then once I realized that that was the truth, man, it opened up so many things. But
Mhm.
getting there led me down some deeper paths. And just thinking about what the root word of responsibility is, in Latin, it meant to answer, to be accountable.
Mhm.
So, and to me, those are maybe things we can choose. So, anyways,
Yep.
good stuff. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you,
Yeah.
everybody. Sandy, Barb, appreciate you guys being part of the conversation there. I, I know we're deep into our time here, Kylene, but
Mhm.
we hit the fundamentals. Do you want to go ahead and hit the
Yeah. Yeah. We can
holistic
do.
wellness aspect of it? Because I guess real quick, so we get the practical stuff, break down your desires, get real clear on what they are, right? And then continue to make just small incremental improvements every day. Because here's what also is going to happen, Kylene. When we do those small things every day, they will build up. And those small things that the next day, when that's small, 30 days ago, a year ago, that would have seemed huge.
Mhm.
But now, because your comfort zone's expanded, that just seems like the next small step. But
Mhm.
again, you put yourself back in your shoes 30 days prior, a year prior, that would have been a massive step, right? You
Yeah.
going live on your own on Facebook and YouTube, that day that you made that choice, it was just the next small step,
Yeah.
right? And yes, it was a decent step, but it was still something you could see from your comfort zone,
Most definitely.
right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
if you would have put yourself back 6 months, a year prior to that, that would have felt like it was in outer space
Yeah.
from your comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
Like the deep reaches of outer space too.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. I mean, you have to believe it to achieve it, right?
Yeah,
And you
absolutely.
truly, and having that belief comes with the confidence. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
love it.
Yep.
Okay, well, lead us into the wellness
Mhm.
aspect of it, and again, just maybe explain to folks that are new to Small Business Saturday here why we're talking about wellness, right? Again,
Yeah.
for me, wellness is for a lot was like, oh, okay, so you want me to do some sit-ups, right?
Some
Or eat
fitness.
better or
Yeah.
whatever, but
Yeah.
it's not always that.
No, it's part of it though.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
for us, wellness means like a holistic look at your life, all the different areas, and kind of going back to the responsibilities, all the different roles we play and the things that make us who we are.
Yeah.
We need to take care of those different sides to us because that's going to create some balance for us. Um, and when we move into Q4 here, for some people, it's going to be busy, or just the holiday season. It's going to be busy, and time management and over committing, all of these things do happen. We're being intentional about it. So hopefully we become more aware of those things. But just the increase in volume of things does create that increase of stress. we can miss opportunities. We can miss just certain things in our life. So looking at the wellness, what do you need for yourself to keep yourself moving forward and in a better positive state of mind? We didn't talk about gratitude at the beginning, but gratitude is something we can always come back to, especially when we're feeling overwhelmed. Just pause for a moment, take a deep breath, and come back to gratitude. Another thing is time
Can I,
blocking for focus. Yeah.
before you get too far away from gratitude, can I just
Mhm.
add one thing?
Yeah.
Something that I've learned personally, and maybe this will be helpful for others. You're so natural at gratitude that maybe you miss
Yeah.
it a little bit. But for me, where it wasn't natural, it was something that I've been taught by Kylene, and now we're writing a book about it. So that's pretty cool. So when we come back to gratitude, right? For me, I would come back to gratitude and I just go, yeah, I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for this.
Mhm.
And I'm like, it doesn't really do anything for me. This is wasting my time, Kylene. What are you doing? Right. That was
Mhm.
my original thought. But what I came to realize is when you say stop and come back to gratitude, yes, there's plenty of things to be grateful for, but really what you're coming back to is that feeling of
Mhm.
gratitude,
Yeah.
understanding that it's more than just I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head. Like,
Mhm.
no, I'm really grateful that I have a roof over my head because I've seen people that don't, right? And I feel for their situation. And
Mhm.
so I am really great. Like it's that kind of a feeling, right? So
Yep.
it can be very small things, but you got to feel it. And so I think
Yep.
it's important that you shared, take that deep breath, slow down just a second, and
Mhm.
okay, feel that gratitude. Okay, sorry. So that was
Yeah. No, and I just to kind of go on from that, it's a state of mind. It when you're in that state of gratitude, it's that highest state that you can be in, and therefore that stress and overwhelmed and negative feelings can't be there at that moment. So it gives you that time to kind of reset, and it just doesn't have to take long. It's just creating that habit. So
absolutely.
that's one of the things that you can do to kind of manage all of this.
Yep.
We talked a little bit about before, time blocking for focus.
Yep.
That can save some time for getting distracted by
Mhm.
certain things. You're just uber focused on one task and you get really fast at it and you knock it out. And then guess what? You've just gotten closer to that end goal.
Yep.
The other thing that you kind of mentioned with the most important task is, at the end of each day, just reflect, celebrate what you did accomplish, and then write down the next 5 things that you could do the next day. Um, Make that decision when you're in the thick of it instead of having to come back and reflect the next morning when you come back. Do you have
Yeah. And
anything more on the 5 things?
yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. And I like that you added that, just at the end of the day, do that. A little kind of, I don't know, pro tip for lack of a better term is also just go, you know what is the roadblock that is there? What's something I'm working on that I can't quite come up with a solution in my brain right now? And put your focus on that before you go to sleep and just be prepared to write a bunch of stuff down in the morning. Okay. Because what's going to happen is your subconscious is going to work on that while you're sleeping. And while it's clearing out all of the clutter in your brain from that day, it's going to, oh, there's bits and pieces and it's going to come and you're going to more often than not, you have the solution there if you gave it a clear task to work on for you. So again,
Mhm.
what am I going to be working on the next day? But what's something that can solve? So having that end of day routine, and I've been pretty lax with my end of day routine lately, and so I think that's a really good reminder that we just come back to that as opposed to
Yep.
I've been like, oh, well, I'll just get up in the morning and kind of put my day together.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
you're so right. I get up in the morning and I do want to put my day together, but if I've already got some framework to it before I start that next morning, that's way better. So good, thank
Yep.
you.
Yep. I love that. Well, that kind of leads me into the next thing. As we get busy, sometimes these habits we've put in place for ourselves,
Mhm.
sometimes we let them go. And I want to encourage you all just to schedule time for self-care. We all have heard the saying, you have to fill your cup up to give to others. Well, it's it's true. We need to make sure that we are keeping ourselves healthy emotionally and physically so we can get through these busier seasons of our life, and just show up the best version of us that we can. And it might look different during this busy season. Maybe it's a shorter walk. Maybe it's just, sitting outside for a few minutes to reset, come back to gratitude, get some sunshine. Whatever works for you or whatever habits you have in place, I would strongly encourage you to keep those commitments to yourself so you can continue to show up and stay healthy. In my day job, one of the things that when we write a plan for a veteran, two of the objectives on their plan for their big goal is the mindset and physical health. So mental and emotional health, as well as their physical health, continuing to do the things that they have in place. Because if we don't take care of this side, guess what happens? All this other fun stuff we're doing just kind of starts to get more difficult. We get a little bit more negative. We aren't enjoying it. The word fun goes away. But if we can keep ourselves in a higher state and really make sure that we make ourselves a priority so we can keep showing up, we are going to have more joy, health, success, all that fun stuff.
Yep. I love it. All right.
Yep.
Well, Kylene, that's some good stuff. Chuck had a comment here that I missed a little bit earlier that I wanted to bring in. This is when I was talking about, ask God to move a mountain and you're going to wind up with a shovel, right? And Chuck shared, he will get you where you want to go. He will give you the tools to get there, but you have to do the work, right? Chuck, I look at that like as, you have to do the work. You have to be the vessel, right? You're the action. Yeah. And again, going back to kind of tie this whole thing up, Kylene, it is all about action. We've got to be the ones in motion. Our bodies, our brains are not made for stasis. Just look at what happens to our health when we're just vegging all the time, right? Look what's happened out there. And I know we've got a bunch of proactive, energetic business owners that want more, know that there's more for them, that are tuned in here. And so just make that commitment to yourself to take action, right? Raise your hand when you need help, reach out, right? Those types of things. And when we come from that place where we get to do it, again, things are so much easier, but we've got to build that momentum, and that momentum comes through action, right? So understand the mindset of, small things, small bites, the foundation of breaking it down. Again, knowing that the one action we take today might feel small, but again, looking back, it's going to probably look really big if we were willing to put ourselves, because again, going to what I talked about at the beginning, nobody sees all the work that you put into getting to this place until it's viral or whatever. Yep. Right. But we don't have the perspective of just seeing that, we have all of the heartaches and pains and struggles and challenges and whatever else you want to add in there along the way. And so it's balancing those two things out. And then, bringing into the wellness aspect of it, like you said, just time blocking, closing out your day, scheduling for those. Sometimes I think when I talk about scheduling and when other people talk about scheduling, they might be two different things. In fact, I feel like you and I might not quite be in alignment, right? When I talk about scheduling, that's like live by your calendar. Where I think it's more of a like put it on there. I'm trying to get people to get more to that. Let's live by our calendar as best we can. So, okay. So, wow, Kylene, good stuff. Thank you, everybody that was commenting along the way. Do us a favor, share this. We're going to do our best to always try to be here every Saturday at noon Central Time. So the more people we get in here, the better off we're going to be. So make sure that you're sharing, subscribe, but share this with somebody else. Share this. If you took anything from today, maybe just share the video and put, hey, here was my big takeaway. What do you think? Right. And you might get a new perspective that could be the answer that you've been looking for. So get out there. Yep, for sure. And Kylene, I guess keep this going. We don't need to stop talking about it now just because we're going to wrap up the video. We've got the Facebook group, osg.link/group. It's called Entrepreneur Success Hub. I'll see if I can pop that on screen here and try. talking and I don't know how Eric does this. There. Talking and trying to do things, not always great at that, but yeah, so get over there, osg.link/group. Even if you are part of the group already, just go there right after this and make sure that you've commented or maybe you've started your own post. I don't know if people feel like they can't post in there. I don't. Okay, I'm going to say something that's probably like all encompassing. And so maybe somebody will push this or test this. But to me, I don't really feel like there's anything off limits, especially this group of people that are tuned in.
Mm-mm.
Whatever you want to share, whatever you want to talk about, bring it. Like, we don't need to. I love talking about the mindset stuff, but you know what? You're having a problem with your printer. Let's talk about that, right? You need to find a new source for something. Let's talk about that. You need to know what email service to use. We can talk about that. So wherever you guys want to go, just let's go over there and continue to build up. We've been bringing new people into the group too. So maybe hit the invite button on the Facebook group if you're so inclined. Yeah, a lot of stuff there, Kylene.
Yeah, I mean, that group is pretty powerful. And I do believe we are all positive, growth-minded people in there. So everyone's there for the right reason, which is really awesome.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.
And so, yep. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, remember, implementing one small change will lead to big differences over time. And so we'll be back next Saturday. Do we know what we're talking about next Saturday?
No, I was just going to ask a question here and we'll figure it out.
Okay. Yep.
Well, so speaking of next Saturday then, Kylene, 3 topics. Okay. These are ones that are in my brain right now. So if these are the 3 that I'm going to throw out there, if you have a 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th that you want to share, go for it. But we can talk about gaining new customers. We can talk about managing our time, and we can talk about pricing our products. So if you guys want, those are 3 things that just came to my brain. But if there's anything else, we can go that route either. So pop it in the comments here or in the group or wherever is easiest. You guys know how to get a hold of us. We're easy to get a hold of, you guys. So don't be afraid.
Please reach out.
Yep, for sure. All right, Kylene. Well, we're just going to encourage people to stay motivated, stay focused, and don't forget to celebrate a win each day. And make sure that you are a part of the group by engaging in the comments there and helping your fellow business owners out. And ultimately, though, we want you guys to believe in yourselves. We know when you believe in yourselves, anything is possible. So we know that you're capable of it.
Yeah, most definitely. We definitely believe in you. Stay positive. Find something in your life to be grateful for. And we'll see you guys next week.
See you then.
Bye.
Dark days, overwhelmed, trapped in a maze. Small business owner, stress had me in a daze. Every problem piled up, couldn't catch a break. Thought I couldn't make it, my dreams were at stake. But then I found a group that changed my whole perspective. Our success group of a community so effective. We all chasing that dream, sharing struggles and fears. They understood my journey, wiped away my tears. Together we broke through, we